Okay, AP Physics. Last time we talked about how to identify a system and what a system was, and now I want to try to go over the different types of systems. And there's not too many different ways to classify systems, but it depends on what you allow in and what you allow out of the system. So if you have a system which we can just, write as just like a little block or some box, these are boundaries for whatever is in the system. So what you let into the system and what you let come out of the system makes a difference. Okay, and one of two things can come into and out of a system in a physics standpoint. Mass can either go into and out of a system, or energy can go into and out of a system. And there's a difference between how much you let come out would depend on what kind of system you have. So the three different types of systems that we have are an open system, and we have a closed system, and then there is an isolated system. And the difference between the three is how much you allow inside or outside of your system in itself. So in an open system, you can let mass and you can let energy inside or outside of the system to be transferred, and it counts as an open system. I can't even spell energy. Mass and energy can be transferred. Okay, and then for the second one, like a good, hang on, before we go to the second one, like a good example of like an open system is anything that you can add stuff to the back of. I think last time I used an example of a truck. If you have a truck, you can add mass to the bed of the truck, and it increases the mass of the entire truck system, and that would add mass to it. You can also add energy to it by adding gas. So, like a truck in itself would be a good example of an open system. A closed system is where you can only let energy be transferred through, but not mass. So only energy can be transferred, okay, but not mass. So a good example of that is like if you had a coffee cup and you put a lid on the top of the coffee cup so that nothing else comes out. That's a really squatty coffee cup. But you allow, you put a cap over it so you can't put any more liquid inside the cup itself. You can assume that the coffee is like, actually inside. But if it's hot coffee, what's going to happen is eventually that coffee is going to cool off because it's going to radiate some heat energy away from it and also between some heat in contact with the ground as well too. But the point is you can't keep that heat energy trapped inside of an object. So since energy can be transferred out of this system, but no mass can be transferred out of the system, we therefore call that a closed system. Okay, and an isolated is like total lockdown of any transfer whatsoever. If in an open and closed system have any types of transfers, isolated would be energy and mass jail. It is where you would take things to keep all of the energy inside or to keep all the mass inside. Like everything, all of the mass and all the energy stays inside the system. So nothing comes in and nothing comes out. Nothing in, nothing out. Okay. Now, ideally, an isolated system is only one that can be done in a limited fashion and usually in some type of science experiment. But another example that I can think of is like if you think of like the entire universe itself, we say with the law of conservation of energy and the law of conservation of mass is that you can't create it, you can't destroy it. What you have is what you have. So, like the entire universe in itself, since you can't create or destroy energy, would be well, we would consider an isolated system, but that's a pretty big system. If you're trying to make an isolated system in reality, you're going to have to try really, 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 really hard to make sure that no energy can be transferred out. Most of the things that we deal with in physics is either going to be an open system where you can change mass and energy, or it's going to be a closed system where you can just change the energy inside and out of this system. Okay, and those are the three different types of systems that we're going to try to use in AP Physics, sometimes you may see this isolated pop up, but most of the time we're really going to discern the difference between open systems and closed systems. Because if you try to make something an isolated system, people are going to try to nitpick and say, like, well, technically you can allow heat to come through and all that stuff. So usually it's just going to be like an open or a closed system. It's going to be the difference between the two. So hope this was helpful to you guys. It was a little bit shorter, so probably to y'all's liking. Y'all have a great day, and I'll talk at you later.